blue ocean out there of opportunities for these right now in this market. And so we're looking to acquire more and more for our own portfolio, as well as we work with and have a tremendous buyers list of people who we can assign it to as well and take an assignment fee for these properties.
Welcome. This is the Hot Real Estate Investing Podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping others through real estate investing. Our hosts interview guests from all aspects of real estate investing who generously share valuable experiences and advice. Whether you're starting out or an experienced investor, this is the show for you.
Hello, and how's it going? My name is Travis Shelton, and welcome to the Hot Real Estate Investing Podcast, where I interview guests who want to help others investing in real estate. Looking forward to episode 2 with my good buddy Landon Moore to talk creative financing. So it's my pleasure to introduce and welcome Landon, a real estate investor, co-owner of Pine to Palms Homes, and the owner of STR Fast Pass. Landon, thanks for joining me again today, buddy.
Thanks, Travis. It's so good to see you, my friend.
I know it's been too long, which is what we kind of recognized pre-recording. So tell the audience, we talked almost a year ago or early 2023. Yeah. What have you been up to, and what's new in Landon Moore's real estate investing life?
Yeah, 100%. It's so good to see you, Travis. And what's beautiful too is like we haven't spoke in 9 months, 8 months, whatever it may be. However, I still see all your posts and all your other podcasts and everything else you're doing. And then you just held a conference. We need to get in on that. I want to hear more about that too. We haven't even collaborated on that and learning more about what you did there. But I'm out there seeing what you're doing, and it just inspires me to continue to push forward because I know you're getting after it. So, I started to, I own quite a bit of real estate and then a few different, short-term rental consulting companies. But really I transitioned this year with interest rates the way that they are going. And now that they are currently, as we sit here in, the last week of November, early part of this year, I transitioned really my market focus into more creative finance strategies to acquire more real estate. Real estate still being my vehicle, but with interest rates the way they were, it was being more and more difficult to purchase properties, even with the intent of operating it as a short-term rental and still cash flow. And so, for me, I had to shift my focus a little bit. And with that came through in creative finance strategies such as subject to or seller finance, and started getting into that early part of this year. And I can't wait to share more on what we're doing there.
Yeah, so let's deep dive right in. I think, just for a lot of our audience, we hear creative finance a lot. What in generally is creative finance? And you threw out two words, sub two, or, so can you explain those maybe just at a high level for the audience?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And creative finance really at its core is utilizing a property or purchasing a property rather using alternative strategies than going to a bank and getting a loan. Okay. Because in the realest sense, going to a bank to get a loan to pay off another bank that has a loan, the only people who make money in those transactions are the banks themselves.
For sure.
And so this is utilizing different ways and different practices. If the home is owned free and clear, meaning there's no mortgage on the property, we can purchase that property on what we would call seller finance or owner carryback or owner financing, right? Where those owners of that property, if it was a rental property, they graduate from a landlord to now my lender. So now, sure, they sell their house for $500,000. However, they're doing so at an interest rate. So really they're selling it for more than, and they reap the benefits, as well as two, they capitalize on saving on taxes, right? So if you sell your rental property for $500,000, you're immediately hit with a capital gains tax on that gain in the tax year that you sell that home. However, the benefit of seller finance, just specifically in this example, is that they're not going to get hit with that $500,000 liability in year one. It's only on the money they gain. So that would be the down payment and then the subsequent payments for the remainder of the year, which is a much easier way to be able to write those off versus a $500,000 amount, right? And then transitioning, say that property has a mortgage on the home, and I'll go into detail of a couple different deals to kind of paint the picture. But if that property has a loan, a lien or a mortgage or a deed of trust against the home, you are legally able to take over the payments and the responsibilities of that debt service while the loan stays in place without getting an additional debt.
Okay.
Yeah.
And and now you mentioned something when you were talking seller finance, and you said, if the home's completely paid off. So now in these situations, does the home or the current owner have to have it fully paid off for the seller finance, or help clarify that point?
Yeah, 100%. So there's really three. There's so many different options, but let's boil
Sure.
it down to really the three main core, specifically to what my buying criteria and what I'm looking at and what I'm currently actively doing.
Okay.
I'm in escrow for 5 properties as we sit here today, 4 of which are subject to, or
Okay.
also known as a mirror wrap. And so we can get into that too. There's two different words to say it, but they mean the identical thing.
Sure.
Um, so if there is a mortgage on the property and I'm simply giving the seller a portion of proceeds of cash at close, right? And if this is an on market property, I'm paying the agent their commissions and closing
Okay.
costs, that would be a straight subject to, or a straight
Okay.
sub to, or a mirror wrap, if you will. Okay. Now, if there is like I just completed a deal up in a town called Kalispell, Montana, where for round numbers, the home was listed on market on Zillow for $500,000.
Okay.
She had a debt service, a mortgage for $200,000 at 2.5% interest rate. Her mortgage payment was $2,000 a month. Okay, but she has $300,000 of equity,
Equity.
right? And
Yep.
so the way I structured that one there is I came in and I said, "Hey, seller, you're wanting to move across the country. Your home isn't selling. It's been on the market 140 days. What if we did this?" So I came in, I took over the payments on that first position mortgage of that
Hmm.
$2,000 a month, as well as that $300,000 of equity. I gave her 10% down payment on that equity, so $30,000 cash at close of escrow in her pocket.
Okay.
Place the remaining 270 as a second position deed of trust or a second mortgage against the home.
Hmm.
And so every month I'm making technically one payment, but two payments, one to the debt, Wells Fargo, let's say, and
Yep.
one directly into her bank account. And we actually set it up in a trust to protect her for her children moving forward. However, from the structure standpoint, that would you would call a hybrid deal. So that would be
Okay.
a subject to with seller finance. That's a hybrid deal, right?
Okay. Yep.
And then the third one is where the home is, there is no mortgage against the property. It's owned free and
Hmm.
clear. Maybe there's a $20,000 HELOC that we pay off at close of escrow, so the property is owned free and clear. That is where we graduate them into becoming the bank, becoming the lender. And so, we give that very similarly to the bank, right? We give them a down payment. The remaining portion is a loan that we place against the home and structured and protected through an all-inclusive deed of trust as well as a signed promissory note, and both of which are legal security instruments for the sellers for their protection and really the recourse if I become a knucklehead and start missing payments,
Sure.
right? Because if I'm a bank, they can foreclose on, or if they're the bank, they can foreclose on me and take their property back over. In all three scenarios, those security instruments are critical to ensuring the protections for the sellers. And so in
Absolutely.
seller finance, again, down payment, right? The remaining portion
Hmm.
of the equity, we put an interest rate on. In some instances, in some transactions, that interest rate is 0% because there's so much pain and motivation that they need to sell the home that they're okay with selling their home for 600,000 with
Sure.
$60,000 down or $30,000 down. And the remaining portion is 0% interest. Um, it just every deal is different. Every seller situation is different. And so,
and you,
yeah, those are the
and you can
three structures.
negotiate every part of it, which is beautiful, right? And so
Every
to
part
really
of it.
meet the needs of the seller or the buyer in this case, if you guys have more money to put down, less money to put down, need a certain interest rate,
It's
whatever it
just
might be.
pulleys, a hundred
Yeah.
percent. So like that example I gave about the property up in Montana, where it was a
Hmm.
hybrid deal, where we had the mortgage of 200,000, the $30,000 down payment, and then the $270,000 of equity that we placed as a second position.
Yeah.
What we ended up doing there is we slapped on a 2.5% interest rate on that equity portion. So she's going to be making more money than she sold it for on a traditional sense. And
Yeah.
so to her, she goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to be making a return. This is an investment for me." And
Hmm.
so for her, it was a win-win-win. The agent got paid, the seller's happy, they got paid, that she got to move on with her life, get out from the burden that she had with herself, as well as me. I get a cash flowing midterm rental property. So
No, it's beautiful.
it was a win-win-win situation there. And so, that's really what I'm doing right now. And so I'm actively out there finding deals, and collaborating with others and working with others. Like just recently, I closed one on Monday out in Dallas, Texas, where 6 people got paid on the deal because we collaboratively came together to get this thing put together and find the right person.
No, that's amazing. And I always love that, you can split that piece of pie so many different ways, so many people can get paid and benefit. And sometimes it's just getting creative, not with only the financing, but just the deal structure itself to be able to close these sorts of deals. So tell me, when you're targeting people right out, people are always trying to buy lists or figure out, who are these motivated sellers for,
Yeah.
especially for sub 2 and seller finance. So tell me maybe what are some of your top, people that you're able to, are these divorced people? Are these, elderly people with a bunch of equity? What are some of those maybe prime lists or prime people that you're speaking to on a daily basis?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Travis, 90% of the deals that I'm finding, we'll call it outbound with my team. I have a team of acquisition specialists on my team who are out there doing agent outreach, are all on market properties. So these are out there for you to find as well. And, so a lot of that is having conversations with agents and building relationships and establishing rapport and credibility and all those things, and what we keep finding really is these homes that are prime candidates for subject to or seller finance, whatever, were purchased, 2 or 3 years ago, where interest rates were, at what we called in our lifetime, maybe the bottom, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm leveraging and trying to find is that time period. Plus now too, we're at a place where the market's pulling back a little bit. Interest rates have rose. And so the buyer pool has shrunken, right? You're seeing the stats too, where the smallest amount of pre-qualifications are happening right now. And so meaning properties are sitting on market longer, right? There's not a lot of buyers out there actively looking for that $4,000 a month mortgage. That's where I'm able to come in and get the seller what they want, put the amount of cash in their pocket that they're needing based on, with the market pulling back, there isn't a ton of equity from 2 years ago. Specifically when we're talking about, say, VA or FHA loan products that are low to no down payments to get into these homes. Sometimes those even have down payment assistance where they're literally no dollars into the house, or, like my most recent Airbnb up in Kalispell, Montana, it was a VA loan. He put 0% down. So it was 100% financing. He bought it 2 years ago. Fast forward to August of this year, he was going to be cutting a check for $1,000 to sell his house, listed on the market. Obviously you have to pay the agent's commission, the buyer's commission, your closing costs, any seller concessions that potentially could have happened. And so I was able to take that, come in, and I'm able to put $15,000 in his pocket. So he's making more money selling it to me than he would conventionally or traditionally. And so, but what we're really finding is there's pain and motivation. So you're right. You hit the nail on the head. Some divorces, really the sellers I'm working with and purchasing their homes, it's a more of a need to sell their house situation than it is I want a bigger house or I want a white picket fence, or there's a job relocation or a death in the family or whatever it may be that forces them to sell their homes, and they're not selling on the market because the market's not allowing them to, and they can't drop the price any lower, right? Yeah. And they can't afford those payments any longer. And so they're in a position where they're handcuffed to these situations, and I'm able to come in and help problem solve with them, put the protections in place that I referred to, and ultimately create win-win-win solutions for not only the seller, also the agent. They get paid on the deal. I pay their commissions. I get a cash flowing asset that I'm able to then either turn into a long-term, short-term, midterm rental, and leverage that amazing interest rate and amass debt at sub 3% interest rates.
No, I appreciate you explaining all that,
Okay,
because
cool.
I think you did an amazing job kind of talking through all those different pieces. And I think, I think the audience will gain a lot of value from what you just spoke about. Now, help me with some of the apprehension. Well, actually two things. So first, is this something new? Sub 2, it's like, I feel like a lot of people just found out about this a year or two ago, but in reality, has this been around a little bit longer than most people think?
Yeah, this has been around for hundreds of years. It just was not popular in the past 15 years or so. So with the real estate market as we all know it, it was booming for a while. There was zero incentive, for any buyer to come in and offer these types of terms to these sellers, when they were already receiving 5 offers while they're in coming soon stage above ask, right? And that was the whole market. There was no reason. We're now at a completely different market phase where this is prevalent. In addition to that, Travis, I believe the stat is 68% of all VA loans were taken out in the last 2 years.
Wow.
A crazy stat, right? And so a lot of those are 100% financing situations. Yeah. So there's tons of opportunities out there for this style of acquisition using subject to. But back in the 80s, back in the 60s, this was referred to as a wraparound mortgage.
Okay.
Let me be clear. A subject to is a mirror wrap. You're mirroring the exact terms of the underlying mortgage on the property. It is a mirror wrap. And so that's what most people refer to it as. And also too, to talk on the security instruments I mentioned earlier to kind of close that loop. The all-inclusive deed of trust, as well as the promissory note. That all-inclusive deed of trust is recorded at the county. It's pre-signed. It's filled out during our title and escrow process. Those two security instruments are integral to the transactions. And the reason why is that if you don't do those two things or protect your sellers with those two security instruments, you're really exposing the seller and not allowing them any form of recourse 2, 3, 5, 7 years down the road. I like to refer to that as like a naked sub two because it really leaves the sellers exposed. You hear horror stories out there. There's a colleague of mine right now going through it that didn't properly set it up. Where the seller stopped making the payments, the buyer stopped making the payments 5 years down the road, but those two security instruments were not in place. And so the seller has no recourse on them for that default. So they have to go out and hire an attorney, which costs thousands of dollars, and figure out a way to take that property back that's affecting their credit. However, with these two security instruments in place, ultimately, it's protecting the sellers that allows they can foreclose on that all-inclusive deed of trust, take the property back over from the defaulted knucklehead, as I like to call them, and then protect it, pay it off, sell it, relist it, whatever it may be.
Now, what if you decide in your Montana deal, you just want to get out of it. You want to sell it yourself. Market goes back up. It's worth $600,000. You just want the capital. Now, at that point, that investor, as she's calling it an investment now, she's getting some more money on her money. She's out of the deal at that point, right? And then is there anything in the contract that says you can't resell the deal or any kind of terms like that? Or is obviously that's probably negotiable as well? Right.
So let's talk specifically about that one deal right there. Okay. So let's say in 2 years time, 3 years time, maybe it's not performing to the measures, the metrics that I'm expecting it to, and I want to move on to something else. Something else comes up, or whatever it may be. If you pull that property up on the tax records, it's going to show 2 underlying mortgages on the home. No different than if your home right here had a HELOC in the second position mortgage, right? If you go sell that home for $600,000, of that $600,000, they're paying off the first position first, the second position second, and anything left over is the profit, right? Yep. So minus the commissions and fees and transfer taxes and so on and so forth. But yes, 100% should be out of it entirely. And the remaining portion of her equity would be paid out on what is left remaining.
Okay, beautiful. And I guess what are some of the, biggest hurdles speaking to these sellers that you have to overcome? Because it is, although it's not new, it's new for them, that they went and listed traditionally. And now are you having a lot of those conversations with the sellers themselves? Or are you having conversations with the agents and having the agents try to explain it to them? Help me with that.
What is up, Hot REI Nation? My name is Jordan Nadella with Simplicity Lending Group and powered by Nexa Mortgage. As the nation's largest broker, Nexa Mortgage offers a variety of creative and competitive loan options through our 170 plus partnerships to help you achieve homeownership with the speed and service that you deserve. Whether you are a first-time homebuyer or an experienced investor, I'm dedicated to finding the right program to fit your financial goal. My mission is to make home ownership a very easy and seamless process from start to finish. If you are in the market today to purchase real estate, please contact me to find the best mortgage solution for your needs.
Yeah, so I'll kind of take you through my process and
Okay,
structure, and then some of those objections that I'm typically facing, and and
perfect.
we're working through as a team. And so I have 5 acquisition specialists that are provided with leads, if you will, of on market deals that are active right now in various markets throughout the country here.
Okay,
And so they're reaching out to agents and having these initial conversations and discussing and kind of figuring out the solution, or figuring out the situation. And through there, they're really trying to figure out the 4 pillars. There's 4 pillars to any sale. There, right? There's the price portion. With on
hmm
market deals, it's pretty obvious what the price is. But what we're really trying to figure out in that phone call in regards to price is, how firm is their list price and how close is it to how much they owe? Because that'll
yeah,
determine, how much net equity they have at stake, to be able to play with and figure out if we are the right fit. Because sometimes we are a square peg for a round hole. It may not make
sure,
the most sense, and we're always the first to say, "Hey, we're not a good fit for you and your seller." Whatever. I'm working one right now that we're not the best fit. And this was after a 30-minute phone call I had with the agent and the seller in a 3-way Zoom, where we're in there, and I stopped the conversation and said, "Hey, I don't think we're the greatest fit based on your next goals and dreams." Um, and so we stopped the conversation from there, and I provided her some other resources for her to sell her home traditionally. But
nice.
of the other 4 pillars, we got price, we got condition, right? On market properties are quite easier to see because you can see the photos. But
For
when we're
sure.
calling on those conditions, really what we're trying to see is, you know, behind the curtain, what's not allowing this home to not sell? Did they have cats? That's number one. Like usually it's the smell of the cats or the dogs. Did it have a small
Yeah,
backyard and families are looking for a bigger backyard? What's the condition of the home? Is the foundation cracks? Is the roof, something's going on? Is that what's prohibiting this from selling?
sure.
My number one phrase I always have with my team is, "Hey, what's the feedback then from the buyers who have walked through the house?" Because you're really
Yeah,
figuring out the condition of the home right there. Because the photos will show everything, right? But the next one is timeline. How soon are you want to sell, right? A home that's vacant is different than a home of 6-bedroom house with a full family and everything needing to move during the holidays, right? So
sure.
timeline, like how soon are you wanting this thing closed? Because I can close these transactions in 2 weeks. It's fairly
Yeah,
simple because there are no appraisals, there's no financing contingencies, so you wipe 2 right out the gate, right? And
hmm
so it's as soon as title can clear and we get all those security instruments in place is really how quickly we can close these, right? So usually we can
yeah,
take over the very next payment. So right now it would be December's payment.
yeah,
Um, and then the fourth pillar, we're really that this is the number one, is the motivation,
sure.
right? Why are they needing to sell? What's the situation? What's going on here? Is it a divorce? Is it a job relocation? Like I'm in escrow for one right now up in Ogden, Utah. The seller's got a job relocation across the country, have already moved. So they have a home sitting vacant right now that's been on market 120 days and it's not selling.
Yeah,
And so they have 2 mortgage payments right now, Travis. So they're in a position where they have 2 kids at home. They have 2 mortgage payments. They're paying for a vacant home. They're not investors. They're not going to rent out the house across
yeah,
the country and get those pieces in place. Let alone it's not the greatest of investment from a long-term rental standpoint. It will. I'm going to keep it as a midterm or short-term rental. I will be able to cash flow it as that, but they're not investors doing that. And so their only solution is to list it with an agent, right? And
okay,
so
yeah.
now we're in escrow for that property right now, and that's their motivation is they don't want 2 mortgage payments. And so we're able to come in and provide that solution for them and take those over from them.
So help me with one point I was thinking about when you're describing all this, and you mentioned the inspection, right? And what is this property? Now you can close quick, but are you typically getting an inspection, like a full property inspection on these assets? Yeah.
We're not doing full property inspections. However, we do have a 10 or 14-day due diligence period is what we call it.
Okay.
And that really helps us determine what also not only is the property a good fit for us, we'll get some eyes on it to walk the property, local boots on the ground, if you will. But
hmm
also, too, it allows us to underwrite the property deeper as to determine what the best exit strategy for us is. And
Yeah.
that exit strategy could be anything from a long-term rental, it could be a short-term rental, it could be a midterm rental. There's some really cool insurance options out there that I want your audience to hear is like midterm rental people immediately jump to furnish finders for travel nurses and whatnot. But there's also companies like this out there called ALE Solutions that are insurance housing providers, where they work with the State Farms, the Geicos, the Aflacs for your and I's homeowners insurance, to where if our home floods or burns down, they need to house our families. And it's too expensive for them to do it in a Holiday Inn. So they're going to go find a midterm rental property to put us in there for 12 or 18 or 24 months while the home's being rebuilt. And what's beautiful about that is it's insurance paid, not tenant paid.
Yeah.
Those are really cool. So we're doing that with that property in Utah, as well as too, maybe a group home. Maybe the home has 6 bedrooms, or we can figure out a way to get a 7th bedroom and we can do a group home or a sober living opportunity. That's what's really cool. And then the last straw is maybe this property, the terms are great. It's a 2.4% interest rate. It fits this, it fits that, but maybe we're spread too thin on our acquisitions, or maybe it doesn't fit the location where we want to own the property. We can then assign that contract to an end buyer who's local or who buys in that area that is going to keep it as a long-term, short-term, midterm, or sober living property. And so during that due diligence period, we are getting boots on the ground, looking at the property. We are spending time underwriting it deeper, getting to our nose to the grindstone. Additionally, maybe we're looking for potential buyers for this property during that due diligence period that are a better fit, that we can just simply assign that contract to, that are the better fit for that property.
Beautiful. Okay, so you mentioned your team a couple of different times and 5 acquisition specialists. What's your whole team member kind of setup looking like?
Yeah, so like I said, we have 5 acquisition specialists right now.
Okay.
And then my business partner, Chris Geddes, and I work in tandem, where I'm more on the front end. I'll call it the A to B, the acquisition side of things. So anything that the acquisition specialists get across the table after we send out what is called the letter of intent. So that letter of intent is really like, hey, here's our rough napkin offer for this property. Are your sellers and are you as an agent interested after you present it to the seller? That's really the transaction. And once we get the yes, let's write it up, or whatever it may be, that's when I get involved. My transaction coordinator drafts up the contract, gets it signed. We open up escrow. That's all handed off to Chris Geddes, my partner, who's also my integrator, who sets up all of our CRM systems and whatnot, for him to determine what makes sense from an exit strategy standpoint, or what we would say a disposition strategy standpoint, if we are assigning that. So that's really the makeup of the team right now. What we are looking to bring on more acquisition specialists to get on the phones and make more calls in new markets, and also look at more seller finance opportunities. It's a blue ocean out there of opportunities for these right now in this market. And so we're looking to acquire more and more for our own portfolio, as well as we work with and have a tremendous buyers list of people who we can assign it to as well, and take an assignment fee for these properties.
No, it sounds great. So is this a strategy that, like, let's say a newbie, someone that, wants to is just starting to look into real estate investing, is this something you think like a newer investor can do, or is this more a seasoned, investor approach?
So what I'll say to that is, there are so many strategies in real estate and so many different things that you can do within it, from cash wholesale to Airbnb to long-term rental to just lending, right? I've done some lending myself on some various transactions too that's involved with real estate, but not really on real estate, right? What I'll tell you is, it really comes down to your network and your community and your support, because there is no magic sauce in terms of one or another that is better than another. And so it really comes down to the hard work that you put in, and the support and the people you have around you who are actively doing those too. And the network that I have and the community of support that I have around me, and who I work with, not only just on my team, but just within the community of Subject 2 or Sub 2, and the community I have around me throughout the country. No matter what, if I have an issue or a problem I'm trying to solve or whatnot, I can go to them and bring that problem, and they can help solve it with me, that they've maybe already done it. And so for 100%, it would be a great avenue for someone who, I haven't done a deal yet. I've tried this, I've tried that. Really, what's going to help you is a community, and it's going to support you in your goals, and it's going to hold you accountable to your goals, and provide you different opportunities. Because within the community itself, it's not exclusive that we're just doing the Subject 2 or seller finance. I have some colleagues right now up in the Northwest that are just specifically focused on pre-foreclosures and probate deals up in one county in Washington, and they're doing $80K a month doing just cash wholesale deals, and they educate on that. right? They're educating on novation agreements, which probably there's not a lot of people who know what those are, right? Or lending and how to properly protect yourself as the lender. And so there's so many things that you can learn within the community other than just acquiring property subject to. And so that's what's beautiful about it. So a newbie investor, I would love to help facilitate and bring them in on that regard, and support them in their goals. And that's a lot of what I do within the community too. So it's great.
No, I love it. Well, really appreciate your time today, Landon. You hit on a lot of things with creative finance, but are there maybe 2 or 3 main points you want to re-highlight or just re-emphasize before we stop the recording today?
Yeah, really, I just wanted to share with the team what we're doing, with your audience there and yourself, like what we're doing on this end, and how subject to more so creative finance, seller finance, and hybrid deals are another tool in the tool belt when you're looking at how to acquire more real estate in another property. And it may be not the right fit. It may be a square peg for a round hole in some instances, and it doesn't make the most sense. But in some cases, it does, and it allows the seller to achieve and get more money for their property and check that box for them. You know, we just completed a deal, another one in Dallas, Texas, where it came down to if they sold it conventionally, they'd be breaking even. And so we were able to come in, but their number one factor is they needed money to move across the country. We were able to move their family across the country, and leverage a 3% interest rate. And we're turning that property into what's called a pad split, another rental property that we can rent by the room. And so it's a win-win-win-win-win across the board. And there is no magic sauce, guys. It just takes the hard work and being around the right people and finding the who, not the how, to achieve those things, and finding your community of support. I'm out here in the Phoenix area, but there are across the entire country and down even Puerto Rico that are doing these types of deals and transactions and want to help support you get your first deal or your first rental property.
I appreciate that. So the best place for the Hot REI community to connect with Landon is going to be on Instagram and YouTube. We'll be sure to attach and include all his contact information in our show notes. Hey man, Landon, this is a lot of fun, and I definitely learned some different things about creative financing from you. So appreciate the education today. And looking forward to catching up here soon in person. And to the audience, Thank you for tuning in today, and commit to taking action today to move your investing forward. Take care and God bless.
Thank you for listening to the Hot Real Estate Investing Podcast. Check out our website, hotrei.com, for additional content and resources. And please take a moment to subscribe and leave a review so we can continue to bring even more value to others through real estate investing.